What do you do as a sixth sensory if you broke up with a five sensory and it wasn't on the greatest terms? The breakup could be something like they cheated and they did something really wrong, which initiated the breakup, or maybe it's less bad than that, but it's still subtle bad terms where it's not totally clear why they broke up with you. Maybe it was a lack of commitment, or maybe fear about something coming up in the future. Whatever those reasons are, five sensories get used to getting away with bad behavior, and then they become used to people just putting up with it, you know? And when you don't put up with that behavior as a sixth sensory, they get really intrigued. Like, why aren't you checking out their social media? Why aren't you messaging them after they've broken up with you? Why aren't you stalking the person that they slept with? Why aren't you more sad? Why aren't you crying all over social media and showing that you haven't moved on? Why aren't you showing that guy that you're dating or that new relationship? Why isn't that picture posted? And they can't really get a strong read on what's going on with you. You'd be so surprised as a sixth sensory, but if you're not doing these crazy things like checking social media, stalking, showing up to people's houses, nagging, complaining, constantly messaging, being needy, wondering why did we break up, these things, you don't do that stuff, you will stand out, okay? And I feel like sometimes it's very normal where I come from. Like, people where I come from don't do this stuff. But as I got more mature and saw more of the world, it's really shocking how many people do engage in this stuff, and it just sabotages any chances of anything ever happening again. So I left for Toronto when I was 20 years old, and I'd been previously living with my parents and going to university in my hometown. When I moved to Toronto, I really started having my first real relationships. Not that I didn't have one before that whole debacle happened of my life of moving to Toronto, but after I moved to Toronto and met my circle of friends, this was the normal standard behavior for breakups and how people treated each other at that time in Toronto. It's like we left each other alone. We didn't stalk each other. But then when I moved back from Toronto to London, I was really surprised to find out that women would post things on something like Craigslist in the States, but we have something called Kijiji in Canada, and put out warnings about men and how devious and terrible they are. And then there would be other women I'd heard about who sunk 20,000 into a house and then divorced the guy, and then he couldn't pay back the 20,000 after she moved out of the house, so she basically lost $20,000 and was really harassing her ex to get the money back. And it's just like, I do understand why people get into these modes of harassing people who have treated them badly, but it's so bad, it's so toxic for your spirit. Even if you understand it, you should never ever engage in it. It's like picking at a scab. My dad has this dog in his life, and what she does is she's got this constant itchy hot spot on her foot. And what she does is she licks and licks and licks this hot spot until she bleeds. Sometimes we're worried it's going to go down to the bone if we let her continue to lick at this wound. And so we have to stop her. We have to get her to wear a cone. We have to put sprays on her foot to stop her. Sometimes she goes to the vet and gets a biopsy on that foot, and it costs thousands of dollars. But my mom always gets so mad at the dog. Like, why is this dog doing this to themselves? And when I was thinking about why do we sabotage ourselves after breakup, and I'm like, this is like the dog continuing to lick themselves when they're continually itchy. It's like, you're gonna feel itchy after a breakup. You're gonna have that itch, that temptation to go stalk the person, that temptation to go check their social media. And when you feel that itch and you feel compelled to do it, and it's like snap, it's like a reaction that you do it in 2 seconds and it feels really good. It's like eating a bowl of ice cream, feels really good. There are those rare things in life that they feel good and they're actually good for you. But most things in life, they don't feel so good, and we have to train ourselves to make it feel good. Like, it feels good not to look at the social media or look at the ex. It feels good to take your attention and time and put it into working, and put it into working out at the gym, swimming, spending time with your friends and talking about something else, gardening, taking care of flowers, taking care of pets, anything else that takes your time and attention away from the addiction, that is your ex. Most of these addictive things in life that we may not even be aware that it's bad for us. It's like not as obvious as a bowl of ice cream makes us fat, It's not as obvious that looking at our ex's social media is bad. But once we know, we can't unsee what we know. We have to, then we're making the choice to consciously ignore our wisdom. And the funny thing is when we try to ignore our wisdom, it usually comes chasing after us in a haunting way. It's like we know we shouldn't look at that. We know we shouldn't be doing that. And sooner or later, the wisdom will come and catch up with us. You'll be going back to my videos and watching, and you'll be like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, and I should have listened, but I didn't listen at the time. One of the first steps to healing that we also have to realize is that we have to stop hurting ourselves. So when we realize our mistakes, sometimes the next mistake that we make is that we beat ourselves up and we're extremely hard on ourselves. We're extremely disciplined. It's like, I have to do X, Y, and Z, or else I'm a bad person, or I'm a bad intuitive, or whatever it is. And being extremely hard on yourself isn't good either. If you slip up and you have a second where you go and look at your ex's social media, just laugh it off. Like, don't take it too seriously. Like, I screwed up in that moment. I made a mistake. I'm going to get back up, and I'm going to keep going with my good habits, and I'm going to forget about this moment that I was looking, and I'm not going to ruminate over it. I'm going to focus on my happy life, and I'm going to meet new people and be a happy person. That's the way you pick yourself back up. If you have a bad moment and you do, look, it's human, just as long as you don't keep repeating the same bad behavior and repeating the same mistakes, and you try your best to learn from it. That's all we can really do. And sometimes we have to take baby steps in the right direction, and we need to learn to crawl and walk before we can run and really feel like we're confident as intuitives. That's okay.